OWC Eats, the web series where we talk to the people making food in Southern Alberta. Oh, hi there. I didn't see you. No, I can't do that. Welcome to the show. Today we're out at Farming Smarter and we're going to speak to Mike Munton.
We're here with Michael Munton from Benchmark Angus. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your ranch?
Sure. We ranch at Warner, Alberta. We run purebred Angus cows, and then since 2004 we've branched out into a branded beef program. We actually own our own slaughter and packing house where we process our own beef and then sell that into the local market, into Lethbridge, Calgary, Banff, Medicine Hat, and as well into BC. That's kind of us in a nutshell.
Mike, tell us what's special about how you grow food.
Well, I think what we do, and I think what many producers do, is being stewards of the land. What we need to do to be sustainable is to look after our water sources, look after our grass, and look after our animals. Otherwise, in years to come, we're not going to be here. On a much broader scale, looking after the environment is our number one priority, full stop. That is what we're about. Further to that, we can do things with technologies and testing to be able to find out how we can be more sustainable. One of the big things that we do is we have a grow safe system where we're able to measure how much feed it actually takes to make a pound of beef. And so with that, we're able to have a more efficient animal, which makes them more sustainable and makes it last forever, making those improvements.
So what are some of the specific practices that you do on the land? Like you mentioned earlier, there's some fences and waters.
So for us, again, trying to look after the environment the best way that we know how. Obviously having cattle in the river is not the best thing. So we've acquired some remote watering systems that will allow us to pump out of the river and then in turn be able to fence that off to keep cattle out of the river so that they're able to drink off site, and we can move those watering stations basically almost wherever we want to be able to remove those animals from the primary water source.
And you primarily have native grassland?
Yes, ma'am.
How many acres?
Just short of 10,000.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
So why is native grass different than a standard variety of grass that would be on my lawn or somebody's lawn, Shannon's lawn?
Who has the better lawn?
Mine's really bad. It's full of dog holes.
So the biggest difference in native grass is it does not retain the moisture that the grass in your lawn would, or in any pasture that we would call an improved pasture or a seeded ground. That would be a newer variety of grass, typically bigger leaves that hold more moisture in that leaf. So when an animal consumes that, they have to get rid of or basically lean out the water to get at the protein that they're able to consume and convert into beef. For us, having native grass, we have what we call short grass country, where the grass never gets very tall, but it has a lot of nutrient value in a very small packet. And beyond that, native grass is valuable nearly 12 months a year. Improved pasture in the wintertime, because of all that water has gone out, there's very little value to it. Because native grass doesn't hold a lot of water, it is valuable 12 months of the year. So for us, we're able to graze 12 months of the year. We can manage our pastures and our rotations that this specific field, we will basically bank that grass for winter or fall grazing because it still has value for the animal.
You mentioned improved pasture. What does that mean?
So that would be any ground that's been cultivated and seeded a newer variety of grass. Anything that's an improved pasture would be alfalfa, milk vetch, any other type of grass that's going to be consumed by an animal.
So why do you sell direct to consumer?
Well, we started our branded beef program in 2004 after BSE came. So for ourselves, we were left with cattle that were virtually worthless. Beef was still being consumed and still had value, but for us to sell to, the large commercial packing houses, we would have been bankrupt. So I ventured out and we started harvesting our own animals and then selling that meat direct. Since that, things have grown quite a bit, to say the least, where we've actually purchased our own packing house, where we're able to put together orders, we're able to distribute product literally from coast to coast with doing outside kills at federally inspected facilities.
Does that have an impact on the quality of the food that you're growing, like being able to control all of those aspects?
For sure. In a big machine industrial plant, they do things a certain way, and that's the way they're done. For us, if somebody wants something done or cut a specific way, we can take the time to do that. Just being smaller and being a little more nimble allows us to do those things.
So I eat your beef, that's how we met. How come your beef is so tender and delicious compared to other kinds of beef?
Well, I think we've taken steps not only on the farming side but on the cattle side as well. We do a tremendous amount of research on genetics to try to be able to ensure that our beef is better. And cattle are very similar to people. If you have a husband and wife that are both 7 feet tall, their kids are probably going to be tall. For beef, it's much the same way. We look for traits for marbling, tenderness, ribeye size, and we can do all of that with live animal ultrasound as well as genomics. So when we do that, we're able to find the best maternal traits and the best paternal traits, put them together, and that in turn creates a better eating experience.
You mentioned before that your AAA beef is off the charts. Can you explain that?
Well, that's what we pride ourselves on. So on the international kill, Canada and the US, last week I think it was 3.2% will grade prime. On our kill last week, we were 80% prime. So the difference is apples and oranges. 3%, on a kill out of the big packers would be 5,000 per day. 3% of that is a pretty small number. We're killing a much smaller number of animals, but our level of quality is far, far surpassing what's produced out there in the commodity beef market.
Wow.
And
That's
you
amazing.
can taste the difference.
Yeah.
Put the plug in here.
The beef jerky that we just ate prior to filming was amazing, and it's unlike normal beef jerky. Like, I don't even know if I would call it beef jerky. It's just like a delicious meat snack.
The steak is like incredible.
I'm sure I've had your meat somewhere. Have you supplied Mocha Local?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure I've had it from Mocha Local then,
Yep.
because we're like, oh my God, what is this? Like, this isn't normal. Like, check the package. Like,
Yeah,
what does it
that's
say?
literally what we did. We were digging in the garbage
Yeah.
trying to find what beef is this.
Where did this come from?
And that's
Yeah.
why I started ordering direct.
Yep.
So I was like,
That's amazing.
yeah.
What would somebody who isn't involved in agriculture or food production be surprised to know about?
I think the biggest thing that we see when we have people outside of ag that come to see us either at the meat shop or at the ranch is to know all that goes into it. We've had literally world-class chefs that have been across the world that have come to the ranch and just sat there with their mouth open and said, like, I didn't know that this was all involved. So whether it's managing water, managing grass, doing mating decisions, we do embryo transfer, all of these things to try to ensure that beef is better, and not only the beef with the genetic side of things, but on the actual production side, that like you don't have one without the other. So we can do all the genetic work that we want to do, but if we don't have grass and water for the cattle to eat, it doesn't happen.
Do you think the native grass makes the beef better?
I think so. I think it's a more natural way of doing it. I think the value in that native grass is beyond imagination, especially to be using it 12 months of the year. I mean, typically in other ranches and other locations, when winter comes, you're done and you start to feed. For us, we relocate cows and they're able to continue to graze, getting more mineral, more nutrient value out of the ground, as opposed to having something that we've produced for them to consume.
Yeah.
Have you found that your native grasses have done better in the face of climate change and even like the drought last year? Do you think that that's something that's helped you? I mean, maybe that's a loaded question, how I asked it, but we spoke to quite a few people last year and various levels of success because of the drought.
I think drought is always a struggle, no matter what. It's incredibly tough. For us in native grass, if you abuse it, is about a 5-year return. So if we beat it down to the ground, we don't have grass for nearly 5 years. We have to keep that in mind always, whether it's a drought, whether it's a good year, that we're banking grass for years to come. It's not just we're planning for 2022, we're planning for 2025 and beyond, to be able to say, okay, this pasture we rested, we didn't graze it as much, it's gonna catch some snow, it's gonna come back stronger in the spring, then we have that in our bank, so to speak, that we can use that early, or we can graze in whatever way. But in managing native grass, it's like controlling your bank. If you're planning for today, you're going to be in trouble. If you're planning long term, That's how you can put things together. And I mean, drought has come and gone. We typically just in our minds plan for a drought every 10 years because that's about what happens. We need to know that we need to have grass in place to be able to weather that storm. And if we don't plan for that, then we're in trouble.
Was there anything different the last 2 years that have been really dry?
You know, you're as prepared as you can be. You know, we're fine on the grass side of things just because we do that planning. We always say like a 1-year drought is virtually not going to affect us. 2 years, we're going to start to feel it. And then 3 years consecutively, we're going to be hurting big time. If you manage your resource, which is the grass, properly, then you shouldn't have that issue. Our biggest problem last year would have been drinking water because we didn't have the snow, we didn't have the run to be able to fill dugouts and have drinking water. So we had to move some cattle into different places in order to utilize water in that way.
What do you think people should be doing to help make their operation more resilient?
I think in anything you need to plan for the worst. So for us, if we've got grass banked, then if a drought comes, okay, we know what we're going to do. If we don't plan for that and then a drought comes, then you're really in trouble. And I think ag is always has to be a long-term play. You know, whether it's feeding cattle, whether it's grain, you're always planning for next year. This year was great, but we can make it better by doing this next year. That's probably the biggest thing. You can't look just in front of your face. You have to look well beyond that. It speaks to the sustainability. It speaks to the environmentalism that has to go into your thought process, into your planning to make agricultural work beyond tomorrow. Otherwise, it's not going to.